trade rumors this week, a bunch of them circling around as we're about ready to hit NFL draft season. Starting off with Allen Robinson of the LA Rams. Apparently the Rams are giving him permission to go speak to other teams about a potential deal. What do you think a deal looks like for Allen Robinson at this point, coming off of back-to-back disappointing seasons?
Yeah, I can't imagine it's more than the Chosen Anderson trade, right? A sixth and a seventh, or maybe a conditional fourth, or like a fourth if he plays a certain number of snaps. Or otherwise, it's a fifth next year. I just don't know with his contract, because it was pretty hefty. It wasn't like it was a low ball offer. Like there's a reason he didn't come back to the Bears. He wanted to go get the bag, and he got like $10 million a year or something like that. Cheap for a receiver, but that's if it's a wide receiver one, not if you're like a borderline wide receiver four that drops jump balls. Like I just don't know, who he fits in with, because he has to be a wide receiver two or three. And even with the Rams where Cooper Kupp was getting all the attention, like he couldn't do anything. And then when he was more of a focal point because Cooper Kupp was down, he did even less. I just can't imagine A-Rob's got a huge market right now.
Yeah, I fully agree. You said 10 million. It's actually way worse than that on the contract side, which I think is going to be the biggest deterrent. It's 18 million is his cap hit for the next 2 years.
Gonna be tough.
I almost see it like the Rams need to give picks just to get rid of the Allen Robinson contract at this point, right? Like at least going into last year, we were like, the Bears didn't really have a quarterback. Of course, he hit 400 yards and only one touchdown. That's just kind of what happens sometimes when you have bad quarterback play. But like he had Stafford for half the season this year. Wasn't a ton of competition at wide receiver after Cooper Kupp went down, and he still fell short of expectations. Only 400 yards, 3 touchdowns this past year. So like, I don't know what any team would want to give a ton up for Allen Robinson. I don't even know why, like they're kind of letting him like pick and choose. I guess just like a little bit of respect towards the veteran. I think the 6th and 7th round pick might be generous. I think they might have to attach a pick just to get off his contract at this point. So just a series of tough contracts for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, at least he's only 29. If he was over 30, it'd be tough. But I mean, 29, you've got probably a couple good years left.
Exactly. Another guy who is apparently up for a trade, apparently the Broncos are quietly shopping him, whatever that's supposed to mean, is Courtland Sutton, the former wide receiver one for the Denver Broncos. Apparently he's on the market. So what do you think his market's going to look like?
It's going to depend on that injury, right? I mean, we don't know what happened with his recovery from the knee. A team's going to have, it's going to all be conditioned on how his physical goes if a trade were to happen. I think it makes sense for the Broncos get some draft capital back because they, like you said, they don't have a first or second rounder. I think Sutton's good enough. He might be able to fetch a third or a late second. I think that might be stretching it, but you've got Jerry Jeudy. Yeah, you've got a couple other, decent players there. I think you're okay building your receiver core around Jerry Jeudy, especially with what he did last year.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of look at it like this, like Amari Cooper last year was the same age that Courtland Sutton is right now, right? He was 27. Courtland Sutton's now 27. Amari Cooper had multiple 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and he went for what, a 6th round pick?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Courtland Sutton, 27. It's been 4 years since he's 1,000 yards receiving season in the NFL. And like, do we really think he's going to go for all that much more? Maybe just because like times are a little bit different. Teams are willing to give up a few more draft picks, and we all kind of universally look at that Amari deal as kind of a rough one. But I just don't think that there's going to be a ton of a market for Courtland Sutton either. I think there's a very good chance he goes somewhere else and has a very redeeming season. The tape is really good on Courtland Sutton. I tweeted out that I'd love him to go to Baltimore and have an 80 catch, 1,200 yard, 6 or 7 touchdown season. Might be tough to reach those numbers, but I think it's doable. I just don't really see him going for a ton, especially given the contract that he's on right now. So yeah. Broncos are kind of cooked at wide receiver right now.
Depending on knee, I wouldn't mind him with the Patriots. I think it could be a worthwhile pick if it's more like the Amari deal, which I think everyone can universally agree that the Browns fleeced the Cowboys on that one. The Cowboys could have used Amari this year. But if it's something like that, that'd be awesome. If it's higher up into that like 2nd round overall, like a second round pick, I'd be like, no, I'll try my luck because there's enough receivers in this draft that I think you can take some flyers.
Yeah, exactly. The upside's a little higher. And just looking at the contract, it's 18 for this year, it's 18 for the year after, and it's 18 for the year after that going into his age.
That's actually a pretty decent contract though, right? Like, they're starting to get structured higher and higher where if you can get wide receiver one production out of him, I think you'll happily pay 18. It's just what does he look like coming back from a pretty bad injury at age 27, 28?
Yep. Yep. Those are both small bananas, A-Rob and Cortland Sutton. The big trade rumor that came out this week is Derrick King Henry is apparently on the trade block. So what teams do you think should be going after King Henry at this point in his career?
None. Unfortunate to say. I don't know
Damn.
why you would go after him. I think the cost of acquisition is far too high for probably 1 or 2 seasons. He seems to be like truly just a Titan through and through, and he's kind of the heart and soul of that team. I just think you keep him in Tennessee. I don't know what team is a running back away from winning. Mainly to the point, we talked earlier where running backs are devalued. That's like no team is just more built around their running backs than Tennessee, except maybe the Ravens. But I'd try to get that Lamar situation figured out before I'm assigning Derrick Henry if I'm the Ravens. So I think it's just going to be a tough market. Maybe someone can get fleeced, but I wouldn't be the one wanting to pull the trigger. And there's some decent running backs that are going to be free agents.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say like the Tennessee Titans, they're done. They don't want to do the thing with Derrick Henry anymore. They're going to tank next year. They want to go get Caleb Williams in 2024. What do you think is a reasonable return for Derrick Henry on both sides?
I think like some kind of not quite Christian McCaffrey package. So I think it's going to be a second and a fourth or fifth, or maybe just a first and nothing else, or like a first with like a very favorable pick swap where it's like you get our first, but we're going to turn our fifth into your third or second round pick. Like it's going to be a very interesting ebb and flow of value, just because with it being a running back on a pretty big deal, it's going to be hard to convince teams that's the way to go. Maybe the Cowboys do it, right? But other than that, I don't know who would want to do it.
I think the most likely team for Derrick Henry, and I feel like I've connected every running back to them just because it seems like they want to get that puncher's chance just to get into the big game itself, is the Buffalo Bills. Like, I think if they had Derrick Henry and they weren't relying on Devin Singletary and the rookies like James Cook or Zach Moss, who they trade for and such, I think that they could actually have a puncher's chance in order to beat the Chiefs, beat the Bengals, kind of get ahead of these other AFC teams. So I think that would have given them a shot, just him running in the Buffalo snow. But yeah, other than that, the market kind of seems like it'd be kind of small. I like your Christian McCaffrey take on it'd be a pretty similar deal at that point, maybe a little bit less because we're a year later. So it'd be tough. For Tennessee Titans fans, how brutal. Like the guy who's the heart and soul of your team, who has single-handedly dragged you to a lot of wins, if we're being realistic, is then traded away. Like that's kind of a tough rumor for
That's why it doesn't sit with me, right? Like I feel like the Titans just have to hold on to him until he wants to retire.
Yeah. So we'll see how that situation develops. Last one here. Aaron Rodgers is apparently on a plane to the New York Jets right now. I was thinking that they need to turn that plane around and head towards Baltimore and go talk to Lamar Jackson, but it seems like they're pretty dead set on the Rodgers deal. Do you think that deal gets done between Rodgers and the Jets?
Not if they can get Lamar, but the problem with Rodgers is you'll have him for a year, and then after that, what? And do you really want to give up multiple firsts or just multiple picks in general for one shot at a Super Bowl? And very few teams probably fit that mold of we have a team that can win right now if we just had a good quarterback, especially since Rodgers last season wasn't exactly stellar by any stretch of the imagination. I think the Jets could definitely do it. I just wouldn't want to do it for all that much draft capital.
Yeah. And like with how expensive his contract is and everything, I don't think it'll cost too much to give him. We had a comment on one of our TikTok videos about like, perennial MVP candidate. He's right up there. Definitely feels like he's lost a step, but he's proven me wrong before in the past. So I think something in that like one first round and like a second kind of makes sense for a guy who, is going to elevate a team a ton. I thought it was really funny that Sauce Gardner came out in support of this. He was like, Aaron Rodgers, if you come to the Jets, I'll throw away the cheese head that I stole, and I'll make sure I won't pick you off at practice. And I was like, damn, like, how do you gotta feel if you're Zach Wilson right now? Like, you have your best player on your team advocating for your replacement already, who may not even want to go there. So kind of a brutal thing for Zach Wilson there. But I think that this deal gets done. That's been my prediction all the way through, is Rodgers to the Jets. If it wasn't gonna be Rodgers, maybe Carr, Jimmy G. And I think that they got to make this happen at this point. I think the Packers look elsewhere in order to replace him.